And we are live with another edition of the Mets Way podcast. Got some big guests right now. We got Pete Hoffman joining the show of the Rico Bronga podcast and producer of Tiki and Tierney on WFAN. Shout out to Pete for joining us. And we got Andrew Michel making his debut as a co-host today too. So a pretty big day in the Mets Way world. And of course, we got Josh, the only Mets fan from New Hampshire. And Jared isn't here today, but it's okay. He's covering basketball. We'll be good. But yeah, let's get right into it. Big Mets news. But Pete, thank you for joining. Drew, thank you for joining. Anything you guys want to say before we get into it?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to BSing the next hour or so about the Mets, and my negativity hopefully won't be too much of a damper.
Yeah. Anything you want to say, Drew, before we get into it?
I couldn't have said that better myself.
All right. Well, I guess the biggest news in Mets land, of course, is Justin Verlander. And Josh, as you just mentioned before we got into the studio, the Mets made it official. Justin Verlander is officially a New York Met. He changed his profile picture, a little colorway on the Mets profile picture. He just scribbled some Mets colors over his Houston Astros.
I think he had like an intern do it for him. Like, yo, bro, just do this for me.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, let's just get initial thoughts, initial reactions. And Pete, since you're taking time as a guest today, let's hear what you got first. What do you think of Justin Verlander coming to the Mets?
Listen, obviously, take Justin Verlander on a whole. Justin Verlander is a perfect replacement for Jacob deGrom. Again, there's concerns with age, but there's going to be concerns with anybody, any free agent. The good stuff is he's just coming off a Cy Young. Again, his third one. Just won a World Series. He does give you length. He gives you that 1-2 punch that we were all bragging about last year with the Mets. So in that aspect of it, it's good. The problem is, realistically, between him now and Scherzer, that window for this Mets squad has shrunk completely. Like, there's no like, oh, we got a 5-year window with this team. No, it's literally 2 years or bust with Scherzer and Verlander. And the other thing too is, and I want to remind people that, you know, it's not just about bringing in Justin Verlander. We did lose Jacob deGrom, and I know people hate to hear that. He chose to go to Texas. He didn't want to be here. You could dive into all of it, whether we gave him a proper offer or whatever it is. A younger, in my opinion, better pitcher is no longer on the New York Mets. Verlander was never as good as when deGrom was on. Rodon, Senga, Kodai Senga, whoever they get, no one's going to be better than Jacob deGrom. So that's a loss. If you want to say you fill in with Verlander, great, I'll take it. But it's like a wash. You haven't improved. And me, I want to improve, but I'll take this as a comp for now.
Yeah, I see that. I completely agree with that 2-year window. You know, with Scherzer and Verlander now, I see a lot of Mets fans, and now Quintana too. Another big, not a big signing, but adds a little bit of depth. 2.93 ERA through 32 starts last year, coming off his best season yet. But again, not a very good track record outside of last season, but still exciting as a fifth piece. And we still need more, in my opinion. And Josh was telling me, we still need more bullpen and starters. We need more. I'm sure you guys agree. But yeah, Drew, let's see what you got. What do you think about Verlander?
Obviously happy to have replaced the big hole that deGrom leaves. But I think I speak for all of us, all Mets fans, when I say we do need more. We shouldn't stop here because our ultimate goal, obviously, is to win a World Series. And I don't think that, I think Verlander will help. I don't think it can just be him. He's a big part of it, but I don't know. We need a lot more pieces still, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Senga's out there. Bassett's still out there. So we still got guys. And now let's go to you, Josh. big Verlander, not a big Verlander guy, but as I'm saying,
I'm not even a
big
Verlander
guy.
guy.
Big Verlander guy.
So I wrote like a page. Like, how do you want me to handle this, Jimmy? Because like I got a lot.
Oh,
of,
go
like,
into it. Get
angst.
into it.
All right, we're gonna start with Charlene Shaharless from 1995's Heat with Disc. It's like risk versus reward, baby. This week, to me, the Mets took the second biggest risk in free agency. The first odds being Jacob deGrom. And the risk is that a pitcher entering the season at 40 years old with 3,163 innings pitched and 482 starts can hold up over the course of the next 2 seasons. I don't want to say that Justin Verlander is going to be trash or he'll be hurt. I have no way of knowing that. And I would be speaking out of my bum if I said I did. And like Clemens, it's very possible Verlander ages quite gracefully and silences every sliver of negativity in Queens. And while it's true that, every free agent risks a signing, this is especially true when Verlander is going to be one of the oldest pitchers in baseball next season. The only people giving him a run for his money are Adam Wainwright and Max Scherzer. 2 of those guys are on the Mets, and last season, both of them missed time with several IL stints. Max had 2, Verlander had 1, and then because of his 1, Verlander said he had a dodged bullet during that IL stint, which could have signed him even longer than he already was. And the other concerning thing is both guys kind of faded down the stretch. Like it's Verlander in his last 4 postseason starts had a 5.85 ERA. Yikers. And that's factoring 2 games where he allowed 1 run. Likewise, Scherzer closed out the season with a 3.16 ERA in his last 7 regular season starts, and then, blew up a toilet bowl against San Diego in the playoffs. And so these guys aren't surefire bets to just be the people that we thought them to be. I know we can say, oh, well, Verlander won the Cy Young. Well, we don't know he's going to do that again or even come close to that again. And I'm not saying that anyone else could have replaced DeGrom's talent or anything like that. And statistically, the Mets would get the best guy for it. But this is a giant, giant risk. And I don't know if it was necessary, really. There's Carlos Rodon, who offered a lot more youth and longevity. Or they could have signed a bunch of 2s. You could have had a rotation possibly of Scherzer, Senga, Bassett, Taillon, Carrasco. Throw in Peterson if you want there. But they chose to sign Verlander. And I think the Mets are desperate. I think that's kind of what this boils down to. They're willing to overlook historical and physical precedents for the sake of their ambition, and they're content taking a gamble on a 39-year-old and a 40-year-old to make 30-plus starts with sub 2.40 ERAs. And if they fail to lift that, the Mets are screwed. That's the other thing about this. The Mets are done if these guys get hurt. It's just over. They could survive Scherzer getting hurt last year because they had depth. They had Bassett, Walker, Williams, and Peterson, but they've lost pretty much all of that. Bassett's not a sure thing to come back. Walker just went to Philly. Williams is in the ether, although there are reports of him maybe coming back. And instead of Peterson now making spot starts, he'll be the 5th starter right now. And they signed Jose Quintana, but he has a 4.24 ERA since 2019. That won't save them. Neither will McGill, who had a 7.11 ERA in his last 8 appearances. It's just such a massive risk on a team that I think has such a core that can be here for at least 3 or 4 more seasons. And I just don't like it.
Josh, I'm going to fight back on you something there, bud. Where I don't disagree on all of your points, but the one major one is, who to fill in for Jacob deGrom. There was no one out there on this market, unless you're trading for a top-end starter out there, which is no one really available. And I don't want to be giving up the farm because we digested already the fact that there is no farm system. We have 3 guys. We called them up. Vientos, Alvarez, and Beatty. That's it. There's no real farm that you can look through it. It's very thin right now. That being said, the best guy available was Justin Verlander. That's not a pass. You're not punting on the season because you brought in Justin Verlander because Jacob deGrom left. If you went and chose a Carlos Rodon, you know how many question marks that guy has? He had 2 seasons of solid baseball where he pitched well, but he's got injury issues. He just, quote unquote, found it 2 years ago. And funny enough, the past 2 seasons, he's been on a walk year. Like this past year in San Francisco, he signed a 2-year deal with an opt-out, and he opted out because he pitched his balls off. Like, that's you got to remember that. Like, it's optics. I don't like the Yankees are supposedly in on signing Carlos Rodon a 6-year contract. I don't want to go in depth on that. Like, I listen. When people think that I'm a little bit crazy, a little bit out there because I'm so negative on some of these moves, but I'm thinking big picture. I'm not just thinking about just like being impulsive and go get this guy, get that guy. I'm thinking about who's going to bring the most bang for the buck. Carlos Rodon's not it, but Verlander for the next 2 years may have that opportunity. And you look at the history of older pitchers in their 40s. There's a couple guys that have pitched decently or Cy Young-like in those early 40s. So you might still have that in Verlander. Even if he doesn't win a Cy Young, at least he pitches half as decent as everyone's busted his chops. He didn't pitch all last year, but Jacob deGrom had 11 starts. If he can give you 20 starts, that's great. Plus, if he could give you numbers as good as Chris Bassett did, which he will, I think that's a given. Chris Bassett was a bulldog last year. I love the innings that he ate up, but Verlander's better than Chris Bassett. So for that aspect, it's not passing and punting by taking Verlander and filling in that DeGrom. It's just that's not the first option, and that's the frustrating thing. But there's other things out there that they're going to help bolster this rotation.
Right. I think the most uncomfortable part of this offseason is the best pitcher on the team is gone, and there's no one on earth who can replace him. And there's just no way around that. And like you just
I agree with.
Figure it out.
I definitely agree with. Yeah.
Jimmy, I know you're passionate on Verlander. I want to hear it.
I went live when the Verlander news broke. So if anybody wants to check it, you guys can check it out. But I was basically pumped about it in a sense, like, okay, we missed out on DeGrom. Not necessarily missed out on DeGrom, but we didn't get DeGrom. He didn't want to come here. So we pivot to the next best guy, like Hoff said. And that guy was Justin Verlander, in my opinion. He followed up the Tommy John surgery with a 1.75 ERA, led the major leagues, and won a Cy Young, won a World Series. I get the World Series pitching deficiencies, but he also dominated the Yankees in the ALCS. And he also pitched a very good Game 5 against the Philadelphia Phillies, striking out 11 of them, only letting 4 hits. And also, I mentioned it, he's pitching in the World Series, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much that his bad starts are in the World Series because World Series teams tend to be very good. So that's another area where I was kind of defending Verlander. So, the fact that, and overall his postseason record is 16-11. He's got like a 3.68 ERA, I'm pretty sure. So he isn't terrible in the postseason. He's actually pretty good. And he's elite in the regular season. And 18 wins, that was huge for the Astros. And imagine we had an 18-win pitcher on the staff this year. And I know it's hypotheticals, but at the end of the day, Verlander makes this team a better team. And that's why I was so pumped about it. But we got to go fill up the other areas. So actually, Drew, I know you're big on Kodai Senga. So before we get into Senga though, let's talk about this guy. Jose Quintana, 2-year deal. What do we think, guys? Hoff, what do you think to start off?
I mean, he's a good back of the end rotation guy. Not even gonna, really invest so much time in it. You think about Tylen Walker. You think about Chris Bassett again. Why were they so productive Walker over the past 2 years was pretty productive too. The lower contract, the easier contract, the 2-year, they got to kind of work for it a little bit harder if they want to get another shot at it. So I don't mind. Quintana pitched really well towards the end of the season last year too. So I'm okay with the 4th, 5th rotation guy being Quintana. That's not an issue at all. So I think it's a solid signing. It was either that or like an Andrew Heaney, and I just don't trust Heaney at all. Again, you look at their track records, they're not the best, but Quintana, at least over the first part of his career, pitched really well in his first part of the career. Heaney, still question mark. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, 100%. Anybody want to go next? Josh, you want to take this one?
I mean, good job, guys. Like, there's really nothing much to make out of this. It's not a big contract. It's around what Carrasco's making, and I think he can profile to be better than Carrasco. I think he's the 4 or the 5 this season, and that's good depth. Good job. I have my doubts whether it's like an impact thing, but hey, you're going to need someone to make 30 plus starts this year, and he's going to do that for you.
Yeah, that's huge. We definitely need an innings eater, and hopefully we can get another guy to get that 6-man rotation. But Drew, what are your thoughts on Quintana?
Yeah, I mean, if it's there if he wants it. I mean, honestly, the depth is what I'm looking for, and that's what we got. So I'm happy for that, but still he's got to prove himself in the New York market. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean, last year when he went to St. Louis, he did pretty well, but St. Louis ain't nothing like New York. We
Yeah.
all know that.
Exactly.
But a guy who might be coming to New York, he's looking to be pitching on a winning team. Buck Showalter had pretty nice comments about him. So the Mets like him. The Mets are interested in him. They're among the top suitors, I believe, with the San Diego Padres and San Francisco Giants right now, reportedly. So Kodai Senga, a lot of Mets fans want to see him, but are we going to get him? What do you think, Hoff?
I think that this is the type of guy where I think for a lot of different reasons, because you guys got to remember the big picture that we haven't even discussed yet. It's not Kodai Senga. It's not Verlander. It's not Brandon Nimmo. It's not Edwin Diaz. It's Shohei Ohtani. 2024 is about Shohei Ohtani. I know that some people think that they're going to make a trade for him in this offseason. That's not happening, especially, again, farm system. We're not giving away Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, and Vientos to bring in Shohei Ohtani when you're expecting Alvarez and Beatty to eat up a lot of innings, at least for DH for Alvarez. So Kodai Senga, though, was a really good cushion for Ohtani. Like, hey, by the way, you hit free agency. Show we have Kodai Senga. He likes it here. Maybe you'll like New York. Billy Epler has those ties. So I think Senga makes a ton of sense for this Mets team. I think he'll also come in cheaper. I think he'll come closer to that Taiwan Walker deal than the Carlos Rodon of 6 or 180. So I'm comfortable with that type of deal. And again, Senga's the type of guy where we know he's been amazing in Japan. We know that he has talent. We don't know if he can cross over to the big leagues, to the major leagues, and that's going to be the question. But I'm willing to take that flip of a coin that he does well, and he doesn't have the pressure of being that ace, but he can turn into the ace.
100%, and that's like the little wild card. It's just right there. He could be a third ace for us, or he could be a middle of the rotation guy. Who knows? But it's the risk I think that the Mets should be willing to take based off what he's done in Japan and based off the fact that even in the World Baseball Classic, I know it was in 2017 and it was only like 2 or 3 innings, but he did strike out some pretty top guys in the MLB. Josh, what do you think of Senga, though? I know you were pitching him last week on our Pitching Pitchers episode. So now that DeGrom's officially gone and we got Verlander, you think that the Mets should still go after Senga?
I mean, there's no question. Like, if the Mets have signaled they're all in, it's just is what it is, whether you like it or not, whether you think they're sacrificing sustainability for win now mentality, whatever. It's too late now. We're in. So go for it. Like, you need a 3 now, and he's probably the best available guy in the market that is probably a contender for you. I think Bassett would be a great guy to get back, but I think he's going to cost more. So if you can get Senga for around 18 mil, that's what a former Japanese player got today from the Red Sox, whose name I'm forgetting. So that sounds right in the same ballpark. So yeah, let's do it. Like, there's no point. Let's just go all in. You're muted, Jimmy.
I love hearing that from you. Let's go all in, baby. I love that.
I'm not thrilled about it, but what am I going to do? I can't protest Billy Epler and be like, hey man, we should get a time machine and let's undo some things. It's too late.
Drew, I know you're a big Ohtani guy.
Yeah.
So, and I know you were pretty excited about Senga, and you've been telling me that you want him. How badly do you think the Mets need a guy like Kodai Senga in this rotation right now with the trajectory that they're at?
So this is a no-brainer to me. I mean, if we can get this guy as our 3, he doesn't, like Hal said, he doesn't have to prove anything to us. He can just, develop, take his time, and then eventually become our ace. And I don't want to see him go to a rival, an NL rival or something like that. So he needs to come to the Mets. That's just all I can say.
Yeah, and he's been saying he wants a big market. He wants to be playing for a winner, and just the thought of Senga joining Verlander and Scherzer, he's learning from 2 of the best to ever do it at the MLB level. So it's pretty two good guys to learn from. I don't know if that's too big of a thing to take into account, but I think Scherzer and Verlander's presence would help not even guys like Senga, but guys like Peterson and guys like McGill. But that's whole nother topic. But let's what do you guys think on that?
For them though, like not to like Get off
Yeah.
topic here. Would there even be room for a McGill or a Peterson in the rotation? I mean, we're going to have 5 if we had Senga.
Yeah.
So then you're delegating Peterson basically to the Trevor Williams spot, and then you're moving McGill back to the bullpen pretty much full time.
What are your thoughts on a 6-man rotation with the 2 old guys at the front?
I'm not opposed to it, I guess. I don't know about what everyone else feels, but like, if that's what you got to do, it's what you got to do.
What do you guys think?
I mean, listen, here's the deal, right? So we actually talked about this on Rico Bronga the other day. Evan brought this up. And when you're talking about Scherzer and Verlander, the biggest problem is you don't even need them for the regular season. It's about the playoffs. You need them for the playoffs. Like, who cares if they go 19-1 in the regular season to a 2.0 ERA and they strike out 200 guys? If they can't give you a game 1 start in the playoffs, nobody gives a flying you know what. So the biggest thing is you need to get them there. I'm not happy about it. I'd prefer not to go that route. I'm always worried. Like, if you're saving their arm, so that means you're concerned about them too. You're concerned about their health as well. So we're all in this like glass. We're worried about these glass vases that we're going to drop on the floor. So that gets me concerned. But if a 6-man rotation will guarantee, which there is no guarantee, if the guarantees that they'll be there for the playoffs, F it, I'll do it. And to be fair, no matter what, whether it's Verlander, whether it's Scherzer, whether it's Senga, which who's not on the team yet, but Quintana, Cookie Carrasco, there's going to be at least 15 to 20 extra starts that are going to be available for somebody because they're going to miss a start in a rotation. They're going to get hurt. So, yes, McGill's going to get starts. Peterson's going to get starts, even though I can't stand him. I can't see him in a bullpen. I can't stand him starting either. David Peterson, if you could package him for a deal somewhere, let's do it. Put him, James, in the can, send him to Texas. Let's go. I don't care. I'll take a bag of balls back. You know what I mean? So, like, that's what you will have these guys starting. But the guy that you have to think of, by the way, Joey Lucchesi. I know not many people are on him. Guy that came from San Diego, he had that the slurve ball they talked about, the little lefty, and a lot of people love lefties. I think he's going to be more productive coming out of either that bullpen or as a starter in that 5th or 6th role, whatever it is. He's got some nasty stuff. He just can't put it together, and he's been injured. If he can, I think that's a guy that the Mets can really use as an asset this year.
That's pretty interesting. Josh, you were actually a pretty big fan of him in the regular season.
Churve. He's great. Like, he's a fun little dude. Pete, I got to know, or Hoff, I got to know, like, what did David Peterson do to you?
So I know, and this is because I talk to Evan about this stuff all the time, and Evan's always like, "Oh, dude, David Peterson," and for the most part, there's been moments that David Peterson has been great, fantastic, but you see those glimpses too, where it's like you could watch. Like, I don't know if you guys are Jets fans at all, right? There's a debate about Mike White or Zach Wilson, and I'll sit there and watch a Jet game, and I'll watch Zach, but I watch Zach Wilson, and someone will be there. Oh, did you see that throw that Zach Wilson had, that missile, that dart? I'm like, yeah, but that was 1 out of 25. The other 20 were crappy, and he made 3 or 4 other really lucky plays, whatever. David Peterson will have a moment, and I look past that moment and look at the other things that he's done, and he has some good moments, but for the majority, I see someone who just hasn't put it together yet, and not saying that he can't or won't, but if you're going to rely on that guy, especially because you're talking about him in the playoffs as out of the bullpen guy in the playoffs, I'm like, that's not what I want. I'm not looking to have experiments in the playoffs. So you have time now. It's a reset. It's 2023. You'll have time to mess around with him, but I think there's better options, personally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I like Peterson. I just don't know what role he'll have. Like Josh said, I mean, it depends what the Mets want to do with those 2 guys at the top of the rotation. Do they want to go 6-man? Do they want to go 5-man? I personally think it'd be a little bit smarter to go 6-man. But yeah, I do see where you're coming though from, Hop, because we see Peterson, sometimes in starts where he'll do really good, but then there's times where he'll load the bases in like the 2nd inning, and we have to pull him in the 3rd for Trevor Williams. But yeah. Trevor Williams too. We were a big fan of Trevor Williams on this show, so we hate to see him go.
And well, listen, he's still open for it. Like, they talked about him. I forgot who actually said it today, but He's been floating around the winter meetings, and he said he's open to coming back and returning. There's some people that are he's trying to convince some people that he's still a starter, but the Mets used him well in that middle relief, coming in as a spot start too. Like, I love that role for him, but can you find lightning in a bottle twice? And that's what you have to remember. Some of these guys, the Mets, Tyler McGill last year started the season out okay. He had the year prior to, like some of this is just lightning in a bottle, or is it legitimate talent? Sometimes it's lightning in a bottle. You have to remember that.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to think of it. And this is actually a good one to speak of lightning in a bottle, because he was lights out to start the year, especially when DeGrom went out in the beginning of the year when he couldn't start for half the year, and then Scherzer went out. Chris Bassett was the guy in our rotation. So what do we think, guys? Do we think that the Mets should go after Chris Bassett if we can't get Senga, or maybe do we want Bassett over Senga even? Because he did do pretty good, besides obviously the postseason starting the Atlanta Braves start to end the seasons, at the end of the season. But besides that, Bassett was relatively a very good starting pitcher with the New York Mets. So what do you think? Do you guys think we should bring back Bassett? Josh, you want to start?
It's tough. He's 33. He's going to be looking for a 4 to 5 year deal, I would imagine. That puts him up probably towards the end of his career, if not close to it. And I imagine he's going to ask for like $20+ million. Because the mutual option they had at first was, I think, 19 something. It's all about the right price, kind of. But then again, like, this is now the new mentality I have to adopt to the Mets, is I think, like, well, what about the price? And then I remember the Verlander contract and the Scherzer contract. I go like, well, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. We're well over the luxury tax right now anyways. Let's just, whatever. Screw it. We'll do it, I guess, if we have to. It's just, I don't know how great this is all going to work out in 5 years' time, but you can't worry about that right now. You got to worry about what you're going to get at the end of the season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not sure what's his exact age. Is he like 34? Isn't he the same age?
He's 33.
33. Yeah. So I mean, I guess they could go two ways with this. I mean, you got Senga, you got Bassett, and you got other guys as well out there. But I guess those are the top two.
If you have Senga, you don't need Bassett.
Yeah, you don't need
absolutely. And let's be serious. Chris Bassett, I did love the guy for majority of the season. I think towards the end of the season, I don't know if he was tired. I don't know if he was tipping pitches. Really, to be honest with you, the worst starts of his season was West Coast starts. Like that San Diego game was dog crap. The San Francisco game was atrocious. He made some really bad West Coast trips. Besides that, he was pretty much on point majority of the season, except to the playoff time and the Brave series. And those are the games that we focus on. And he had an issue with the fact that Mets fans looked at those starts as like, big spots, and that he didn't come through, and like, wow, things changed. Well, because that's what we expect. We've seen you all season long be a stud, and now you suck. It's bad timing. Maybe you just were off that game. Maybe something was going on. Maybe you were injured. I don't know. But of course you're going to be judged like 10 times more. Those are the biggest spots of the season. So the fact that he was a little bit turned on New York makes me a little bit turned off. And that being said, too, like, I think he does deserve the money, the length contract. If it's a 5-year deal he's looking for, I hope he gets it. But it can't be with the Mets. Like, I'm looking at the big picture. I'm always saying, I'm like, what are the Mets doing right now? The Mets are, if you look at this roster, it's a very compact 2 to 3 year window. There's not much depth to it. They haven't signed Alonso. They haven't signed McNeil. Nimmo they haven't brought back. We don't know what's really going on. Besides Francisco Lindor, it's Alvarez and Vientos and Beatty if they don't trade them. I mean, we really don't know what's going on in like the next 4 years. We have no freaking clue. So I'm not sitting here and saying, well, Chris Bassett's got to be my ace or my middle of rotation guy in 3 or 4 years. I don't know if I want that. The guy was good. He deserves the money. If you told me we'd have like if it was a 5-year deal that the Mets decided to sign, but a club option after 3, and we could just toss him, I'm okay with that. They'll never accept that. but let him go make his money. He deserves it. And I'm telling you right now, dude, the Giants, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Cardinals, the Cubs, these are all teams that are looking to bulk up. And I'd be nervous I don't think he's going to go to Phillies like freaking Ty Walker, which that sucked. But like I don't think he was going to go to an East Coast team, which is good. But like he's going to help a team, no question. And Imagine he goes to the Cardinals. Imagine he goes to even the Cubs. I know Cubs are a little bit more of a stronger market, but the Cardinals are one of those like, we don't really care. You're going to be really good. Our team's always good. Just do your job, and it's fine. And he's going to fit in perfectly there. And he's going to make, if it's a 5-year deal, he'll deserve every penny and more.
Yeah, 100%. I was a little turned off by what he said about New York too after his 2 starts. Drew, what do you think? You think we should bring back Bassett, or you think, nah, get out of here? Don't.
If we can
Don't
get
bring him back.
Senga, why would we need? This is the thing. When you sign that pen and paper, you know what you're going into in the New York market. You know the fans are toxic, and that's because we want to win. We want to win arguably more than any other fan in the entire MLB. So for him to say those words just completely turns me off to him as a player for my organization. But, as Hoff said, if he can go and win somewhere else, good for him. But personally, I couldn't care less if he wants to come back. Sorry.
Yeah,
I need you to pitch for me in those big spots, and he didn't do it. So
yeah, that's straight up what it was. And then the fact that, like Scherzer, he owned it when he was like, "Oh, what do you think about getting booed?" He was like, I sucked. That's what you want to hear out of a pitcher. You want to own your mistakes. So but off from Bassett, and now let's kind of get in. Well, actually, let's talk about Taijuan Walker, because Hoff, you mentioned him. I didn't put him. Actually, Josh, I think you did have him on the notes. So let's get into him.
Yeah.
Taijuan Walker going to the Phillies, 4 years. That's another pitcher that the Phillies have stole from us. I mean, he's not as good as Zach Wheeler, but still a pretty good pitcher. He did pretty good things with the Mets. Besides that one little blow up with the Atlanta Braves in the middle of the season, Taijuan Walker was a really good pitcher for the Mets. So what do you guys think about Taijuan Walker leaving? Josh, I know you said in the chat that you were pretty upset about it. So Josh and Hoff, do you guys want to start off? We'll go with you two first in the starting lineup.
I'll say real quick, I've come to Jesus moment. I think he's being overpaid a lot. 18 mil for a guy who crumbles in the second half of the season. I don't know if I would have done that, but it is just another symptom of going into last night. The Mets had 3 rotation spots to fill. They'd only filled 1. They moved quick on Quintana today. They have 1 left. I think they're in pretty solid shape, but Hoff, what do you think?
So I love Taijuan Walker. I think he was the guy that I was clamoring for a couple of years now. I know he's got injury history, but I think that guy's a stud. I know he didn't always pitch like a stud, but something about his stuff, something about just him, his actions, his charisma, just something about him on the mound. I love the guy. Like, I'm not upset he's not on the Mets. Let me just put it that way too. Like, I just think he's gonna be a good pitcher. I think if you look at last year, the Atlanta start fine. 2 years ago, even too, where his first half was amazing. His second half kind of went downhill after that Pittsburgh Pirate debacle, where he went to go and hit the ball out of play, but it never went foul. It never went foul, and he hit it out. It was unfair, and he blew up that one inning where he gave up a ton of runs. His ERA blew up, and he never really recovered after that. But also, mind you, he never pitched as many innings up until especially after having injuries. Never pitched as many innings as he did in the past 2 seasons back to back. So you're going to have those struggles the second half of the season. So people like killing him for that, I think, is unwarranted. But I think he did a hell of a job for a 3-4 pitcher, no questions. Now, what bothers me is he went to Philly. Like, that hurts more than anything else because it's a rival. Like, we talked about Judge. Would he ever come to the Mets? Like, I mean, really, realistically, Mets-Yankees, it's a different type of rival because you're not in the same division. You're just cross-down rival, and some people think that's even a bigger deal. But regardless, he went to a division freaking rival along with Trey freaking Turner. Bryce Harper's there. I can't stand that guy too. Like, can we make it worse? Can we make it worse for ourselves in this division? I'm not saying I would have went and signed Taijuan Walker to prevent the division from getting that much out of hand, but like, damn, that sucks. I would have loved to see him in a different uniform. I would have rooted for him wherever he went, whether it was West Coast, American League, Central Division, don't care. But why is it got to be the freaking Phillies?
Agreed. The fact that it is the Phillies, that's what kind of hurts. But at the same time, like Josh said, he is overpaid. And if we can get Senga, I won't be too hurt by it. But the fact that it was the Phillies, it does hurt. It does sting a little bit. But at the same time, if there wasn't a rotation spot for him, I don't know. But Drew, what are your thoughts on Taijuan Walker leaving us for the Phillies?
It stings a little bit because I really did like Taijuan Walker, and he does have some good stuff. Some shaky starts as well, but again, seeing him go to the Phillies, it just hurts because now that's two big pieces we've seen go to the Phillies, and our division just gets stronger every day, and it's a little frustrating as a Mets fan because our division has never been easy and gets harder every day. So
yeah, arguably the Mets could be the third best team right now, some would say, in the division, because the Phillies just went to the World Series and they just got Turner, Taijuan Walker, and then the Braves. They won the division last year and basically killed it the second half. They were on pace for like 120 win season if they played like they did in the second half and the first half. But yeah, so the Mets got some work to do if they want to go up to par with the Phillies and the Braves next season. But they're still working on it. They still got time to add.
I do have good news.
Good news
about this. Well, not it's a theory.
Oh,
Dave Dombrowski, he always destroys the team he leaves behind for the most part. It happened with the Red Sox, who had to go into a small rebuild after he left. It happened to the Tigers, who are still kind of climbing out of it. In 5 years' time, I think the Phillies will still have a lot of great talented players, but they're going to strip that prospect farm bare. And that's not to say, hey, that's great for the Mets. It's just going to make the division more competitive. But in 10 years' time, I'm curious what the Phillies look like a lot.
So that's great, but if they make the World Series again, that's taking time away from us. That's a problem. Yeah. So, I could sit there and watch somebody be like, "Oh, this guy's nuts. He's gonna be really good for 5 years and then suck for the 5 after that." Guess what? That doesn't make me feel any better. They backed into the playoffs and got to the World Series. We had 101 wins and they couldn't beat the Padres. That's what I'm worried about. How do the Mets get better? I can't worry about anybody else, but them scooping up talented guys like Trey Turner bothers me because, again, the Judge thing. It's not that we didn't get him. It's that we were never even in on either of them. And you could tell me, well, where does Judge fit with the Mets team? Where does Turner fit in the Mets team? Well, Judge, there's a spot in right field. You could easily move Starling Marte to center field, which you're thinking about doing anyway. So you could have put Judge in right field, and boom, that's that. Or Turner, for example. Listen, I understand he's a shortstop, but he's played center field before. Maybe you talk to him. Maybe you talk about second base. Maybe you talk about third base. You give him the game plan of this team. We're going to go and try to win every single year. That's what the Phillies are doing. I know he wanted to play with his boy Bryce Harper. I get that. He wanted to go to Philadelphia for whatever reason. But I understand the reason why he went there. We got to be more appealing to guys too. How is that not even possible? So if you're going to tell me there was no position, that's wrong, because A-Rod came to the Yankees and moved to third base. There are people that are willing to do it if the money is right, and Steve Cohen has a ton of it. And Billy Epler is going to use that money of Steve Cohen. However, I just don't know if he knows how to use it properly.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are worried about, especially with the deadline, him trying to be cute, trying to add Darren Ruff and Daniel Vogelback. A lot of people weren't too fond of that, but I like Vogelback. I do like Vogelback. I hate Ruff, but I like Vogie. But that's a whole nother.
Ruff? Is he going to be on this team next season? Honest question, not. I don't think he will be.
You have two guys that are combined. They're worth $4.5 million. I think they'll both be on the team. Listen, I joked about this earlier on. And someone was like, well, I think if the Mets ate Cano's contract for $20 million, they'll eat Darren Ruff for $3 million. But that's BS, because you want to know why? Guess who made the playoff roster? Darren Ruff. We all knew it was a mistake, that it was a bad move to bring Darren Ruff to this team. And they kept on shoving it down our throats to the end of the season until he magically got hurt and Francisco Alvarez gets called up. But then come come playoff time, he gets on the roster. Like, that to me is just someone who's being stubborn. Like, this is going to work out. Darren Ruff is going to work out. There was a reason we brought him here. And that's where I think Billy Epler is trying to say he's outsmarting everybody. Like, trust me, I know what I'm doing. That, I'm sorry, I don't trust this. I don't trust the half-ass, the split stat nature, the let's split the DH, let's split this, let's do the analytical approach. Like, it can't be full analytics. And that's basically what, and listen, I understand Darren Ruff, he's had a career, but he's also 38 years old. He's not young. You can't fool us. Like, I'm 40. I would never hire myself anywhere. Okay, I don't care who it is, and I've listen, Spike. Don't listen to this ever. My boss, don't listen to this. But like, you want young guys that are gonna keep on shooting fire and spin fire and have that fire in them. Like Darren Ruff, he's lost. I don't think he's gonna change. But let's keep on running him out there because I'm smarter than you. That's the problem that Billy Epler and the Mets have right now.
Yeah, they were trying to be cute at that deadline. I was a little upset with it too. I wanted that impact bat. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it. But now that we're talking about that impact bat, how are the Mets going to get better? What can they do to get up there with the Phillies and the Braves? Well, Brandon Nimmo is a free agent still. Center field is obviously a hole. And the Mets are reportedly interested in Andrew Benintendi. There's other names out there that don't even deserve to be mentioned, honestly. I'm all in on just get Nimmo, get Senga, and then the Mets, Steve Cohen, Billy Epler, you can go get anybody from a bus stop. I don't care who it is. Just get me Senga and Nimmo. I'll be happy. But impact bat-wise, Brandon Nimmo, what do we think about him? Do we think he needs to come back with this team?
Well, James, let me ask you a question, first of all. You said, get me Nimmo, get me Senga. You've then basically brought back the same team. You've switched now Verlander for DeGrom and Senga for Bassett and Quintana for Walker. Nimmo, you brought back. Where has the team gotten better? This is a 101-win team, but I think in reality, you take a step back, they were a little overrated. They had 101 wins, but were they really that good? Are other teams not getting better this year? Do we think that the Nationals are going to be just as bad? Do we think the Pirates are going to be just as bad? Do you think all these teams they're playing are going to be just as bad? If they're not, that means the Mets are now going to regress on a team that was basically the same. So where are we getting better? If you're going to tell me Brandon Nimmo, bring him back, listen, I think there's these intangibles about Brandon Nimmo that make him a really good ball player. Does it make him a great ball player where it's like, whoo, we got Brandon Nimmo, the best center fielder out there? No, there's no one out there. Kevin Kiermaier is not an answer. Okay, there's really bad free agents out there. So I can't get excited about it. But Brandon Nimmo is not this game-changing bat that we're making out to be. He batted, 268? Was he 268? His on-base was high. He sees a lot of pitches. Don't get me wrong. I love that aspect. I mean, the fact that you can tell me he'll see the first 10 pitches of a game, that cuts down. When starting pitching, we know they go 100 max. Hell, this guy's got 90 pitches left. That's awesome. But on the other hand, his numbers are never going to equate what we need from somebody in this lineup. We need a power bat. We need someone to protect Pete. We need someone to protect and just lengthen out the lineup. And that's not Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo would be nice, but who's going to be the guy to come in after that and help protect? It's not Brandon Nimmo. And the other thing, too, is I actually do like his hustle. I always say this to Evan, he reminds me of a left-handed version of Hunter Pence. Again, stats will never show it. What he does on the field is different. So it's like I'm torn, but if you told me it's just Nimmo, it's not enough.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm a little worried too, because, Judge obviously not coming to the Mets. Josh Bell was a bat that our co-host who's not here today, Jared, he was big on. He thought the Mets should go after Josh Bell, who I thought, honestly, he could have been a pretty good DH. And a lot of Mets fans wanted him at the deadline or even Juan Soto, but the Nationals trading him in division. That would have been hard. But, Josh Bell was a piece that the Mets could have been in on that they weren't in on. And like you said, Hoff, it's like Billy Epler, why aren't you in on these guys? You want to add Verlander, you want to add Scherzer to these 2-year, $40 million deals, and you want to bring back Diaz, and we have Alonso, we have the batting champion and McNeil, Starlin Marte. This team is set up to win now. but they do need more because there are teams, like you said, that have gotten better. And the Mets, they just added Verlander right now, and that's about it. So they do need to add a bat, and I completely agree, but I just don't know who it is now with Bell and Judge gone. Who is that impact bat that's going to make an impact, and especially Turner gone, but who's that power bat that you think outside of Nimmo can come in here and make an impact right now that's still a free agent?
Well, if you free agents, I mean, realistically, this is, and I'm say take this for a grain of salt. A couple of years ago, when Cohen took over the team, they made a big splash. They traded for Francisco Lindor, and I'm not opposed to it. I wasn't opposed to it, but I just made a point of saying Francisco Lindor did not need to be traded for. They could have waited till free agency, okay? Because there's all these shortstops available over the next few years. Why are you trading? You have 2 shortstops already. You have Jimenez, you have Rosario. Why not try to trade for Nolan Arenado? Why not trade for a position of need? Okay, they still need those positions. Catcher position, I know Francisco Alvarez is supposed to be there, or hopefully going to be there. Escobar right now is third base, but really, are we Escobar, Beatty? Are we locked in on that? Does that make you feel comfortable? Center field still a hole again. So these holes have all been popping up again. Shortstop is the only thing that we solidified, and yet those are the big names out there. Xander Bogaerts is out there. Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa. Like, think about how frustrating that is that the past 2 years, the biggest free agents are shortstops. But yet 2 years ago, we made sure we locked up the shortstop. Like, that to me was an idiotic move. And that's not Cohen's fault. That's some other people's fault that kind of pushed him to let's make a splash. We'll do this. This is great. But that backfired. Can you convince one of these top-level shortstops to change position is the question. I don't think they will. I think that the Giants are going to pay for Correa, or somebody else will definitely pay for Correa. I think Bogart's either going to go back to the Sox. Maybe he goes to L.A., but there's other teams that will say, listen, we have a shortstop position available for you, play shortstop. That's what the Mets have an issue with, because the top level players available are not guys we need. And if you want to say Benintendi's a top level guy, he's not even a replacement for Nimmo. Like, he's like, again, like, oh, well, DeGrom got replaced by Verlander. Benintendi replaces Nimmo. It's like, okay, I guess, what did we really do? We didn't really do anything. We didn't improve, and that's an issue. There's really no free agents available that were going to help us at the positions we need.
Yeah, I like exactly what you said just there. There's really no way that we can improve, and the Mets got to convince, if they want an impact bat, it's going to have to be one of those shortstops that you just mentioned. And can they convince them to move positions? And I think they could if they want to. They definitely could. They have the money for it. Convince Correa to move to third. Escobar, I'd rather Correa than Escobar 100%. I think a lot of Mets fans would. But the thing is, like you said, are they in on him? Why aren't we hearing that they aren't in on him? And instead we're hearing that they're in on Andrew Benintendi, who I do not want over Brandon Nimmo, like you said. If it was like the option of Benintendi or Nimmo, I'm taking Nimmo all day. Benintendi, what? 304 batting average. Yeah, yada. But at the same time, he only played in like 126 games compared to Nimmo's 154. And Nimmo, like you said, seeing 10 pitches at the beginning of every at-bat. But there's still that need for that big bopper. We need that impact bat. So, Josh, what do you think? Do you think we should go for Correa? You think we should go for Dansby Swanson or one of those guys?
I don't know. It's a really lame answer, and I hate to say it, but what's so interesting about the Mets is they're like trying to do 2 things at once. They want to have their sustainable guys coming up in the future, your Beatty, your Alvarez's, your Vientos, Mauricio eventually, and they want to give them experience and playing time, but they're not – but they also want to win it all right now almost, and it's very confusing. Like, I would like Carlos Correa in theory, but then there's no place for Beatty. And that's not to say, Beatty's going to be better than Correa or anything like that. But it's unless you're trading Beatty or Vientos, which they haven't been willing to do yet, there's no long-term player there. And they're just in this weird flux of like, we're making a lot of lateral moves. We're not getting that much better anywhere. And they haven't even addressed the bullpen yet. And the bullpen pickings are getting very, very slim very, very quickly. They still have to play Trevor May, Seth Lugo, Tommy Hunter's back. Woo! Joely Rodriguez. They picked up Brooks Raley today, which is a good pickup, but he's not been a guy that's been consistent for 5+ years or something like that. They got to replace Ottavino. There's just so many holes still to go that I don't really know what like the outlook is. I think they're honestly hoping like we get 101 wins again and we just redo last year and hopefully things turn out differently.
Well, I think the big thing is that you're missing out on. You kind of said it, is that they want to force the prospects on us. Here's the problem: is that last year we begged for prospects during June. We begged for prospects in July, August, September. We finally got a couple, and Alvarez came with 6 games left. I mean, that's not enough. We begged that like there was a little bit of a halt in production offensively, and you see what the Braves are doing. Oh, Michael Harris, let's just bring him up. Let's bring up Grisham, or I believe it was Grisham they brought up, right? Or whoever it was that they brought up. But they brought up Grissom, thank you. But they brought up a couple of young guys to add to this team. And the thing is, the Mets had opportunity to do that, and they chose not to. They chose to force us this, like, all right, let's see what other random guy we could call up or bring in. Or, I mean, we didn't see, I can't remember any of these guys' names, but it was like they brought up like Soup Campbell again. All these old random guys that were just like force feeding us because they didn't want to bring the prospects up, but they couldn't go out and make a trade because they want to save these guys. So really what it comes down to is now, fast forward, they had the opportunity to do it last year at a really good time when the team was winning. Now the pressure's on. The team is fresh. So good luck. Go get us 101 teams. And we're going to give you Alvarez. We're going to give you Beatty. We'll give you Vientos. They're going to get the bats. If they suck, they're gone. That's what they're saying. That the Ohtani is going to come in hopefully in August or July, whatever, and those guys will be gone for Ohtani. I hate that because our farm system is not really that great right now. So I don't want to see him traded, but like they missed the boat on sampling them at an opportune time. It's again, like they're missing the big picture. Now, of course, yeah, cool. Let's go see how they are. And I don't want to sound negative of like, oh my God, like, did you waited too long on them? Clearly they're still young, but it's a different spot for them. The Mets can come out of the gates and be terrible. Like if Escobar is terrible again, if for some reason McNeil goes back to that season where he batted 250, if Lindor struggles, if Alonso's not, say God forbid somebody gets hurt, the catcher position, Nito, we don't expect much out of that bat, but we're expecting Alvarez to fill in as a full-time DH and part-time catcher. Like I don't know if they even understand what they're doing. Everything's got to work out, and this is the problem that happened with the old regime. All this stuff, if this happens, if that happens, we're going to be successful. I'm done with the ifs. Last year, to start the season, there were no ifs. This was the roster. This was perfect. We got it locked and loaded to go. Now it's turning into a lot of ifs.
100%. It is definitely a lot of ifs, and that impact bat in free agency is still available. I mean, they do got, like you mentioned, the shortstops are still there. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to convince them? And then another interesting thing, you mentioned Ohtani. Do you think that the Mets could shock the world and possibly make the move a year early and maybe go for him this year? Or do you think it's set in stone? They're going to wait for him and go all in on Shohei next season.
I mean, I still feel like I'm just taking up all this time here. I apologize, Josh. Drew,
it's all good. You're the guest.
There's no chance in hell they're getting him this offseason. Like right now, it's not happening. I listened to the GM of the Angels. I'm not going to buy into what he's telling me, but like actions speak louder than words. They've literally brought in, Hunter Renfroe. They brought in Tyler Anderson. They brought in like some with Estevez from the Rockies. They brought in like pieces. So they're adding to this team right now with not the thought of, well, we're trading Ohtani as soon as possible. That's not happening. If they're terrible, maybe they'll trade him come trade deadline. But I think he's just going to walk at the end of the season. I don't think they know what to do with him. I think they want to try to be as competitive as ever. So they're not trading him. It's basically free agency for the Mets. That's what it comes down to.
Drew, I'm curious what you think about this, but I think the Angels Met GM today came out and was like, "Yeah, my kids would hate me if I traded him." So they're definitely not trading him.
Patience is a virtue. I'll say that. So when he comes, it's going to be worth it. But if we move for him right now, it's all going to fall apart. I'm half optimistic already just because of how the offseason's been going, seeing all our rivals get better and seeing us not really doing anything. I mean, at this point, it looks like we're going to go in with a very similar team to last year and just kind of hope. I mean, in my opinion, we can't rely so much on players like Pete Alonso and Lindor and hope they have great seasons. We need sure bats, and that's not what we have. And just hoping on our farm players to come in big spots and do well for us is not really – that's not what I want to see. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but when he's ready and we can get him, we got to snatch him up at the first opportunity. He's obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest baseball player in the world. So,
and Drew, to your point, you made a great point is, the farm system, which is something that we really have to focus on, right? We have to be patient and wait for Ohtani because realistically, right, we talk about this window is very small right now with this Mets team. We don't know how much further they're going to go with Verlander, Scherzer. There's going to be a lot of turnover in the next few years, no matter what happens. So if you trade the pieces that are going to get traded for Ohtani, if there were to be a trade, it's going to be two of the three, whether it's Alvarez, Beatty, and/or Vientos. Those are the guys you're talking about leaving this team. Then who the hell's playing with him? So it's like you can't just give up everything for Ohtani and then be like, all right, well, we got Ohtani. Now we'll work from here. It doesn't work that way. The farm system is not great. That's why we had to go out and bring in another 3 starting pitchers to fill in this rotation.
Yeah, the farm system, like you mentioned, Hoff, earlier in the show, it's a little bit overhyped. We got Alvarez, we got Beatty, and we got Vientos. And Vientos, I was listening to Mets Twitter Spaces the other day, and they do a great job with that. If you guys ever want to check that out, Edge runs a great show over there. But he was mentioning how Vientos, he was always in the lineup getting protected with Alvarez and Beatty. So Vientos was seeing fastballs, predominantly fastballs. He's a big minor league guy, he was telling me. So he watches a lot of the games. And he says Vientos would eat up on the fastballs. And then when he comes to the major leagues, he's getting either overpowered by the fastballs or he's not hitting the breaking pitches. So I'm not really too sold on Vientos. I'm a little bit sold on Beatty, but I'm not too sold on them making an impact for the 2023 Mets with Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer at the top of the rotation when you want to win a freaking World Series. And you're going to be going up against the Philadelphia Phillies and Atlanta Braves. Basically, twice or however much a month or however much they play them a month. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's going to be challenging going up against those guys. And it's what's up?
I was just going to say, what's more about the prospect thing is if these young guys come up and they stink, which flat out is just possible. These guys are really young. And the Mets do want to trade for Ohtani. They have to make a big trade for Ohtani. Now we're talking about guys who just entered the system that are supposed to be that second wave of guys on the way. That's a Parada. That's a Jet Williams. That's a Blade Tidwell. A Matt Allen to some extent. There's a possibility where this all goes really, really dark really, really quickly. And that's the scary part.
Yeah. I mean, I was just throwing it out there. I don't think we should trade for him at all right now, but it's just we need an impact bat. And I don't know what the idea is outside of those shortstops like you mentioned, Hoff. I'm trying to think of what the Mets could do to get better in 2023. Do any of you guys, Drew, you got anybody in mind? Do you think the Mets, what would you do if you were Billy Epler right now?
I'd say the most frustrating thing about last season was that I believe, in my personal opinion, that we were an impact bat and a good day away from making the World Series. And the thing about now is we still need that impact back, but the pool of players that we can get is getting so small that it's really, it's hard to say who even would help us at this point.
Yeah, and I agree. And you look at who's really out there. You think about the power bats, right? I saw a picture of John Heyman, which, F you to screwing everybody with the Aaron Judge stuff. He take a picture of Nelson Cruz. The guy's 40 years old, or 39 or whatever his age is, like it's a great idea that like he still has like 20, 30 home runs left in his bat. But you saw last year was Washington, he barely played, he wasn't healthy. You get him cheap, but do we want to take that risk again? Like Miguel Sano's out there, guy could give you 30 home runs, but like we have Darren Ruff and Vogelback for the, well, they could potentially do something for you. Why am I going to spend more money on somebody that could potentially? I need someone that's actually going to do it. Like if you want to tell me, and I don't like it, if you get me JD Martinez, right? Like I don't think he's got any pop left in that bat that's going to be significant. But if he could still bat over 300, lengthen the lineup out a little bit, and a reasonable deal, I'll buy into it. But it's got to be a reasonable deal. It's got to be like a 1 or 2 year deal type of thing with an opt out, where it's like make this guy go out there and prove his worth one more time. Maybe he can give you 25 home runs. That'd be amazing. Like I'll buy into that. There's some bats that I could potentially buy into. Trade market seems more likely for that significant stuff. But again, we're talking about guys that we don't want to trade right now. And that's the problem, is that you're in that hole of just constantly, do you know where the bats are? You know who's available. You know who's going to be going soon. Like Rafael Devers, if the Boston Red Sox can't figure it out, that guy's going to be available. Like he's not going to want to re-sign with the Red Sox. Great. Third baseman, let's bring him in. It's perfect. But what do you think it's going to take to get him? And that's the conundrum right there. That's the issue. And that's why it's like when you had guys available to fill in spots and people are like, oh, well, because you want to get Judge, you want to get Turner. You can't have everybody. Yeah, no crap. But that they're going to significantly help this Mets team out right now. And that's what I need.
Yeah, we definitely need that big bopper in the middle of the lineup, especially because Alonso's a guy who's going to drive in 130 RBIs and maybe hit 40 plus home runs for you. But Lindor, every good lineup, every playoff lineup has two Pete Alonsos. And Lindor, I get it. He's great. Hits 270 last year and then hits 25 home runs, over 100 RBIs. But those RBIs are a bit inflated because of the two people that hit in front of him. And I mean, that's not a knock on Lindor. He hits with runners in scoring position, which is clutch, but he's not hitting home runs in big spots. And that's what we need. That's what we were missing. San Diego Padres hit more home runs than us in the wild card round, and they beat us. Basically, every single team that advanced in the playoffs, it was whoever hit more home runs. But I guess to wrap this thing up, Brandon Nimmo, I guess, is the last thing. Do you what do you guys think? Do you guys think Nimmo, Benintendi, are you guys really sold on that? Or are you guys just like, or are we just accepting the fact that we're going to go into 2023 with the rerun of last year?
Yeah, if it's a rerun, it's going to be miserable. But if I had to be told, gun to the head, Nimmo or Benintendi, I'm going Nimmo. I know it's going to be the bigger contract, which sucks. But you have to sign somebody for some sort of length. And listen, he's going to be a 5 or 6 year deal. But I think Nimmo, and again, like it's weird because I'm not sold on his numbers. It's more about what he could do for this team and the energy he brings. So for that, I'd go Nimmo. But Benintendi is just like whatever. Again, I need that one of those guys and another bat. So it's not enough at the end of the story.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I asked Josh earlier. Maybe we wait until the trade deadline to add a bat, considering the Mets are reportedly not really showing interest in these shortstops. Hopefully that changes over the next couple of days and they can shock us. But I'm just wondering where that impact bat is going to come from. So, I mean, I want Nimmo right now and I want Senga, like I mentioned earlier, because that is what gives me, like right now, like Drew mentioned, we're banking on hope again. The Mets fans always banking on hope. So I'm going to be banking on hope in 2023. Drew, what you think? What's the outlook for this Mets team in 2023 heading in? What's it looking like right now?
In my humble opinion, it all rides on Nimmo, and if we re-sign him, I think he's worth a lot to our team, just because of good fielding, and then as well as the on base percentage is good. He's got the hustle. I like him as a player, so I'd love to see him come back, and then also leaving that gap in the center field. the players they're looking at replacing him with, Kiermaier, I can't hit the ball into play. So, I mean, that's not what we need. And as you said before, every team that was in the playoffs had 2 Pete Alonsos. So I think we're a couple pieces still behind where we need to be at. And I'd love to see us pick those pieces right now and start the season fresh.
Oh, you're still muted, Jim.
Yeah,
Here you go.
100%. I agree. Josh, what do you think? Do you think the Mets are going to shock us and make any significant moves besides the Senga and Nimmo, or do you think, or maybe even sign Benintendi rather than Nimmo? Because Nimmo is not a lock, obviously. But what do you think? Are we going to rerun with this team, or you think the Mets are going to improve?
I think it's going to be more of the same. I think the only way they really significantly improve is through the trade market, which I'm not. I just don't know who's frankly available. I know Brian Reynolds is a name that's gotten a lot of pop. That'd be a lot of prospect capital, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. So it's got to be. I don't know. I think it is probably going to come out of the trade deadline, but we just saw Billy Epler punt on that basically last year, and I'm not too enthused he's going to do much better last year. And the saddest thing about Billy Epler is like a week into his hiring, everyone was like, well, yeah, but David Stearns is going to take over in 2 years, right? And everyone's still thinking about that and still hoping for it instead of just being like, oh, Billy Epler, hi, he surprised us. So I have no idea what the season looks like. I think we might finish third in the NL East, honestly, and I'm not sure we make the playoffs. It's not a guaranteed thing. The NL is getting a lot better this year.
100%. And then with the Padres trying to basically swing for the fences right now, offering Judge $400 million. But yeah, that's going to do it. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Mets Way. Pete Hoffman joining us from WFAN, producer of Tiki and Tierney and Rico Bronga podcast. You can check that out. The Rico Bronga. If you're a Mets fan and you don't watch the Rico, you got to listen to it, man. It's one of the best pods out there for Mets wise. But yeah, Hoff, anything you want to say before we sign off?
I just thanks for the support. Thanks for listening. We'll drop another Rico Bronga tonight to talk about the Quintana, the rally news, and more. So I'll be on Tiki here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Drew, anything you want to say before we pop out of here?
Just happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Josh?
Go Mets, ? Let's see what happens.
Deuces, guys. I'll see you guys later.